The night belongs to us. November 13th, 1942. 1:24 a.m. Iron Bottom Sound, off Guadalcanal. The sea is black, so black it swallows the horizon. No moon, no stars. Only the low churn of water against steel hulls and the faint smell of oil drifting across the darkness. On the bridge of a Japanese cruiser, officers lean forward, eyes straining. Binoculars are useless now. Night has always been an ally of the Imperial Japanese Navy. For decades, they trained for this night fighting. Sudden torpedo strikes, annihilation delivered before the enemy even knows a fleet is present. Below deck, a junior officer mutters the same thought shared by many senior men around him. The Americans won't see us. They never do. Somewhere to the east, U.S. warships cut silently through the water. No searchlights, no radio chatter, no visible signals. From the outside, they look blind. They are not. In the Combat Information Center of an American destroyer, the room glows an unnatural green. Radar scopes hum softly. Thin lines sweep in perfect circles, again and again, cutting through the darkness the human eye cannot penetrate. Then contact. A bright blip appears at 12,000 yards. Then another, then several more, forming a pattern too deliberate to be chance. The American radar operator stiffens. Multiple surface contacts, bearing 090. For the first time in naval history, night is no longer neutral. Ride. Just months earlier, Japanese naval officers had laughed at American radar, not openly, never in official reports, but privately, confidently. They believed war was decided by spirit, training, and eyesight sharpened by experience. Machines could fail, men did not. In pre-war exercises, Japanese lookouts had repeatedly detected enemy ships long before Western navies did. Their optics were superb, their night vision training relentless. They practiced torpedo attacks in pitch darkness until timing and instinct became muscle memory. Radar, they believed, made sailors lazy. And worse, it revealed your position. Why trust a glowing screen when your eyes, your instincts, and your honor had carried you to victory across the Pacific? So when reports arrived that American ships were relying heavily on radar, many Japanese commanders dismissed it as a crutch, a sign of inexperience, something to be exploited. Tonight, they expect another easy kill. Ride. The first shells arrive without warning. No searchlights flare. No star shells bloom overhead. Just the sudden concussive crash of steel smashing into steel as American gunfire tears into the Japanese formation. On the bridge of the cruiser, confusion erupts. Where are they firing from? No one can answer. There is no visible enemy. Only muzzle flashes in the distance, too brief, too precise. The shells land with terrifying accuracy, walking up the superstructure, smashing antennas, shredding exposed crew. Men dive for cover as alarms scream. The Japanese fire back instinctively, bravely but blindly. Their gunners aim at sound, at flashes, at guesses. Torpedoes are launched into darkness where targets should be. But the Americans are already maneuvering. On radar screens, Japanese ships glow like lanterns in fog. Every turn, every speed change, every attempt to flee is visible seconds before it happens. Fire control solutions are calculated calmly, efficiently. Orders are short, professional. Target locked. Commence firing. Another Japanese destroyer erupts in flame. Ed. You can almost feel the disbelief spreading through the Japanese fleet. This is not how night battles are supposed to go. Their doctrine says they should be the hunters, slipping in unseen, striking first, vanishing before retaliation. Instead, they are being tracked, anticipated, hunted. A senior officer grips the railing, staring into the dark, trying to understand what has gone wrong. Then it hits him. They aren't seeing us. They are sensing us. Radar, once mocked as unreliable, unnecessary, is now dictating the entire rhythm of the battle. The Americans fire first. They adjust faster. They disengage at will. Night. Once Japan's greatest weapon has been stolen. Below deck, damage control teams fight fires with bare hands and dwindling water pressure. The smell of burning paint and cordite fills the air. Wounded men cry out in the dark, unheard over the roar of engines and explosions. Another salvo slams home. The cruiser shudders. Power flickers. Somewhere, deep inside the hull, steel buckles. On an American destroyer, the radar operator watches one blip fade, then fragment, then vanish entirely. He exhales slowly. Target sinking. No cheers, no celebration. There will be time for that later, if there is a later. Because even now, the Americans know this is only the beginning. The Japanese will adapt. They always do. But tonight, in Iron Bottom Sound, a line has been crossed. Naval warfare has changed forever. And the officers who once laughed at radar are about to learn just how merciless the darkness can be when it no longer belongs to you. Doctrine shattered. Minutes stretch like hours. The Japanese formation tries to regroup, but cohesion is gone. Orders shouted from bridge to bridge dissolve into chaos as signal lamps flicker uselessly into the void. Radio discipline, once strict, is abandoned in desperation. Voices overlap. Bearings conflict. No one can agree where the enemy actually is, because no one can see them. Another American salvo crashes into a Japanese destroyer off the port quarter. The explosion blooms low and violent, throwing men and metal into the sea. The ship lists sharply, engines screaming before falling silent. On the Japanese flagship, a staff officer stares at the burning wreck through binoculars, hands shaking despite years of combat. His mind races backward to lectures at the Naval War College, to night exercises in the inland sea, to instructors who promised that darkness would always favor the better trained sailor. This is not training. This is erasure. Here's the shames. Across the water, American ships move with eerie confidence. They do not bunch up. They do not hesitate. Each maneuver is deliberate, timed, and informed by a steady stream of data flowing from radar to fire control to the bridge. In the Combat Information Center, the atmosphere is tense, but controlled. Officers speak in measured tones. Contacts are tracked, predicted, intercepted. You can feel the shift in power, not loud, not dramatic, but absolute. The Americans are no longer reacting. They are dictating. Here's the shames. For Japanese officers, the realization comes in fragments. A torpedo spread that should have found its mark sails harmlessly through empty water. A target they thought was dead suddenly reappears on the flank, firing again. A destroyer turns to escape only to be hit precisely where radar predicted it would be. The enemy is not guessing. They are calculating. And calculation beats courage every time. Here's the shames. Below decks, a young Japanese ensign helps carry wounded men toward a darkened medical station. Blood makes the steel deck slick. Smoke burns his eyes. Somewhere above, the ship's guns fire blindly into nothing. He remembers something an older officer once said during a pre-war dinner. Americans rely on machines because they lack spirit. The ensign does not believe that anymore. Spirit cannot see through steel and darkness. Radar can. Here's the shames. The battle spreads across Iron Bottom. Sound, ship against ship, contact against contact. American destroyers dart in and out of firing range, guided not by sight, but by invisible lines sweeping across radar screens. Each engagement follows the same brutal pattern. Detection, positioning, overwhelming fire. Disengagement. The Japanese fight fiercely. No one doubts their bravery, but bravery cannot compensate for blindness. One by one, icons of Japan's night fighting doctrine burn. Here's the shames. On the flagship's bridge, the senior commander finally orders withdrawal. It is not an admission of cowardice. It is survival. But even retreat is dangerous now. The Americans know exactly where the Japanese ships are headed. They shadow them just long enough to land a final blow, then fade back into darkness. Predators choosing when to strike. Watch. As the remaining Japanese vessels limp away, Iron Bottom Sound lives up to its name. Wreckage floats among oil slicks and debris. Fires illuminate the night like funeral pyres. For the first time, Japanese officers are forced to confront a terrifying truth. Their doctrine, perfected over decades, has been made obsolete in a single night. And worse, the Americans are still learning. Radar is not a trick. It is a revolution. And the next night battle will be even deadlier.
The Americans learn how to kill at night. The sun rises over Guadalcanal, thin and pale, revealing what the darkness concealed. Burned-out hulls dot Iron Bottom Sound. Twisted steel breaks the surface like gravestones. Oil spreads across the water in shimmering black sheets. The silence feels heavy, unnatural, after hours of thunder. American sailors stand on deck, staring at the aftermath. No cheers, no celebration, just quiet recognition. Something has changed. They didn't just survive the night, they mastered it. 9. In the hours that follow, after-action reports are written while memories are still raw. Radar plots are studied. Gun camera footage reviewed. Mistakes are noted not to assign blame, but to refine the process. This is where the Americans are different. Victory does not make them complacent. It makes them curious. 9. At U.S. naval command centers across the Pacific, news of the engagement spreads quickly. Officers who once doubted radar's reliability now lean closer to briefing tables. Questions replace skepticism. How early were contacts detected? How fast were fire control solutions generated? How did destroyers maneuver without visual confirmation? The answers are precise, technical, repeatable. This was not luck. It was systems working together. Radar, communications, training, and discipline woven into a single killing machine. 9. On the Japanese side, the mood is very different. Survivors return to bases shaken, exhausted, and deeply unsettled. Reports are delivered carefully, almost apologetically. Commanders struggle to explain how elite night fighting units were outmaneuvered by an enemy they could barely see. Some officers blame poor visibility. Others blame bad luck. A few speak the truth. We were detected before we detected them. Those words carry weight and fear. 9. In Tokyo, naval planners begin revisiting assumptions long held as unbreakable. Radar, once dismissed, is now studied with urgency, but development is slow. Resources are scarce. Industrial capacity is stretched thin. Even when Japanese radar sets begin appearing on ships, they lag behind American models in range, resolution, and integration. Technology alone is not enough. The Americans have already built doctrine around it. 9. Back at sea, U.S. commanders grow bolder. Destroyer squadrons train specifically for radar-directed night engagements. Crews rehearse silently, learning to trust screens over sight, data over instinct. Gunnery officers fire without ever seeing their targets. And it works. Each night engagement sharpens the blade. 9. You can almost feel the psychological shift. American sailors, once anxious after dark, now welcome it. Darkness becomes cover, not danger. A place where they can strike first, strike hard, and vanish. Japanese crews feel the opposite. Night no longer feels safe. It feels hunted. 9. Another engagement. Another night. Radar contacts appear like ghosts on glowing screens. Orders are issued. Guns speak. Japanese ships attempt traditional tactics flares, torpedo spreads, aggressive charges, but the Americans adapt in real time. They alter speed, adjust course, exploit every data advantage. The pattern repeats, and the casualties mount. In grace, a Japanese officer writes in his diary after one such battle, "We trained our whole lives for night combat. Now the enemy owns the night. It is not bitterness. It is resignation." In grace. By late 1943, the consequences are undeniable. Supply runs become increasingly dangerous. Reinforcements are delayed or destroyed. Attrition erodes experienced crews faster than they can be replaced. Radar has not just changed tactics, it has changed momentum. And momentum, once lost at sea, is almost impossible to regain. But the most devastating realization is still to come. Because radar is only the beginning. The Americans are about to combine it with something even more lethal, overwhelming industrial power.
When the night turned against them, forever. By early 1943, the Imperial Japanese Navy no longer treats radar as a curiosity. It treats it as a threat. Surviving officers speak of American ships appearing out of nowhere, firing with terrifying precision, then slipping back into darkness untouched. Night engagements, once a source of pride, are now approached with caution, even dread. But acknowledging the problem does not solve it, because by the time Japan begins to adapt, the Americans have already moved on. In the fore. At US shipyards thousands of miles away, radar sets roll off production lines in numbers Japan cannot match. Improved models replace older ones without ceremony. What was advanced 6 months ago is already obsolete. And every new ship gets one. Destroyers, cruisers, battleships, even landing craft. Radar is no longer special. It is standard. In the fore. More importantly, the Americans stop thinking of radar as a device. They think of it as vision. Fleet doctrine evolves rapidly. Night battles are no longer fought by instinct or improvisation. They are planned, rehearsed, and executed like clockwork. Each ship knows its role. Each officer trusts the data. Each crew understands that what they cannot see, the radar already has. In the fore. Japanese countermeasures struggle to keep pace. Some captains attempt aggressive charges, hoping speed and surprise will overwhelm American sensors. Others rely on smoke screens and flares, trying to blind the enemy the way night once had. It doesn't work. Radar cuts through smoke. It ignores darkness. It does not panic. In the fore. You can almost feel the frustration building within the Japanese command structure. They are not losing because their sailors are weaker. They are losing because the battlefield itself has changed. And they do not control the tools that define it. In the fore, the psychological toll is immense. Crews grow tense after sunset. Lookouts stare into blackness that offers no reassurance. Every unexplained splash, every distant engine noise triggers alarm. Night becomes an enemy, and fear spreads faster than any shell. In the fore. Meanwhile, American confidence hardens into dominance. Radar-directed fire becomes routine. Engagements that once lasted hours now end in minutes. Japanese ships are hit before they can even identify the source of the attack. Survivors speak of shells arriving from nowhere. But they are not from nowhere. They are from the future. In the fore. By mid-1943, Iron Bottom Sound is no longer a battleground. It is a warning. The wrecks resting on the seafloor tell a story visible only in hindsight of a navy that believed tradition could withstand technology. It couldn't. In the fore. A senior Japanese officer later reflects on the shift. We trained to fight men. Instead, we fought systems. And systems once perfected do not tire. In the 4. As the war moves north and west, toward the Philippines and beyond, the lessons of Guadalcanal follow both sides. The Americans refine their advantage. The Japanese attempt to mitigate losses. But the balance is gone. The night no longer offers equality. It offers execution. And as radar-guided fleets tighten their grip on the Pacific, one final truth becomes impossible to ignore. This war will not be decided by who fights harder, but by who learns faster. The silence after the slaughter. Late 1943, somewhere in the Central Pacific. Another night at sea. The water is calm. The sky is clear. Perfect conditions once. On an American cruiser, the radar scope sweeps endlessly. Its soft hum barely noticed anymore. The operators are calm, almost bored. Contacts appear. Ranges are called out. Solutions calculated. Orders passed. No one raises their voice. This is routine now. 1. Miles away, a Japanese task group moves cautiously, engines throttled back, hoping silence will offer protection. Lookouts strain their eyes until they ache. The darkness feels thick, oppressive, hostile. They know what's out there. They just don't know where. That uncertainty is the worst part. 1. The first shells arrive with surgical precision. One hit disables a destroyer's bridge. Another rips through an engine room. Fires bloom, then spread. Return fire is scattered. Unfocused. Desperate. The engagement is over almost as soon as it begins. American ships disengage, fading back into blackness. Radar still watching, always watching. No pursuit is necessary. The outcome is already decided. 1. By the end of the year, the pattern is unmistakable. Japan's surface fleet avoids night engagements whenever possible. Supply routes are rerouted. Operations are delayed. Initiative slips away, mile by mile, island by island. Not because Japanese sailors lack courage, but because courage cannot outpace detection. 1. After the war, survivors speak quietly about those nights. They remember the fear of invisible enemies, the helplessness of firing into darkness, the moment they realized they were already seen. Many admit the truth they once denied. Radar didn't just help the Americans fight better, it broke the spell of night. 1. The Pacific War will be remembered for aircraft carriers, island landings, and atomic fire. But beneath all of it lies a quieter transformation. One that began not with an explosion, but with a glowing screen in a darkened room. A moment when vision replaced instinct. When tradition met technology and lost. 1. The Japanese naval officers who once mocked American radar were not foolish. They were human. They believed the future would look like the past. It never does. 1. As Iron Bottom Sound settled into silence, as wrecks rusted beneath the waves, the lesson endured unforgiving and permanent. In war, the side that sees first decides everything.